Good morning, guys. My name is Jackson Kenyanji, and I want to welcome you all to today's live broadcast that will be looking into how to attain a lower carbon economy and the benefits of embracing a green economy in terms of job availability and how can we be able to move forward on that. So welcome to the live webinar. My name is Jackson Kenyanji. I am a climate reality leader and I'm the founder of Climate Change Kenya. So welcome to the 24 hours reality of the Climate Reality Project, Truth in Action. So to start off, I'm going to begin by looking into what is it that we need to know about the essence of embracing the low carbon economy. And on top of that, I would like us to look into which are some of these pathways we can embrace so that we can be able to reduce our carbon footprints. And for us to be able to know what is it that we need to do, what is it that we need to embrace in terms of reducing our carbon footprints, we first of all need to know which are some of these impacts, which are some of these effects of climate change that we need to have at our fingertips. So let me start off by looking into what we call the effects of carbon, or which are some of the sources of carbon footprints that humans have been able to set on the face of the earth since the industrial revolution that we have all been talking about. So let me jump straight into the topic of the day. And I'll start off by looking into which are some of these carbon sources that we have. In terms of the carbon sources, we have the direct and indirect sources. And also we have some of the natural sources of carbon and the anthropogenic sources of carbon. In the carbon sources we're going to look into in this chart that I have in front of you, you'll be able to see we have combustion, we have fossil fuels, we are having sources of carbon from the plants, from the animals, from the ocean bodies, and this is a cycle. We are going to realize later on that we have carbon sinks, and the carbon sinks include the ocean bodies, which forms the largest. 70% of our planet is composed of the oceans. We are having the trees, we are also having the soil, we are also having some of the animals that help in this. So this is some of the carbon sources that we have. And looking into the anthropogenic sources of carbon dioxide, that is the human sources of carbon dioxide, in front of you we have a pie chart. And in this pie chart, it has divided the percentage of the carbon emissions from the anthropogenic side in three ways. Here we have fossil fuel taking up 80% of the anthropogenic sources of carbon. Fossil fuel here we talk about the fossil fuel that is able to move our steam engines, the vehicles that we have. 9% is taken up by land use changes. Land use changes here I'm talking about deforestation with the aim of agricultural activities. Here I'm talking about urbanization, whereby we are actually using cabros and cementing and covering our soil, and our soil is one source of our carbon sinks. Also, we are having industrial processes taking about 4%. These are the industries that are actually engaged in the use of coal, in the use of non-clean energy. In the natural sources of carbon dioxide, that is the naturogenic sources of carbon, it is divided into four, and the biggest chunk is taken up by the ocean, the atmosphere exchange. So as much as the ocean is a carbon sink, it releases carbon into the atmosphere. 28% is taken up by the plant and animal. During respiration, they release carbon. Also followed closely by soil respiration and decomposition. So as much as the soils are carbon sinks, they serve as a two-way path. They can release that carbon into the atmosphere. And lastly, we are having 0.03% taken up by the volcanic eruptions. Carbon emissions, I've categorized it here from the chart in front of you in terms of these industries: the coal industry, the oil industry, the gas and the cement industry. And it is evident to point out that coal, oil, cement takes the lead, followed by gas, followed by oil, and followed by coal. And I'm happy to say that Germany has been able to move from its coal dependent kind of industries. China is also moving from its coal dependent kind of industries and embracing the renewable green energy. Also, from this perspective, I've categorized the greenhouse gas emissions per the countries. And from the metric tons persons per year, that is how much carbon is emitted per person in these countries, the one that is leading is Australia, followed by Saudi Arabia, and lastly we have Indonesia. And these are emissions data and does not include deforestation or land use change emissions. Only countries with a population greater than 10 million are shown on the chart. So this one will take us back in the following slides, as I'll be able to allude, which are some of the ways we can implement to reduce our carbon footprints. I'll be able to point out that population control is one of the main ways. When you have a population increase, this quantifies to the amount of carbon that that country will be able to emit. So once we are able to control our population, then this will be able to help us in controlling the carbon footprints or carbon emissions. Transportation, these are some of the industries and how much gas or greenhouse gas in terms of carbon they're emitting. When you look at transportation, 28% comes from the transport sector, mainly because they are fossil-dependent sectors. Electricity, that is electric generation. Most of the electric generation plants are fossil-fueled, are diesel-powered, and we are trying to move into the renewable kind of energy-dependent electric power plants. Industries, 22%, agriculture is 9%, commercial is 6%, and residential is 5%. When you look at commercial and residential, here I'm talking about the indoor kind of greenhouse gases. When you use all these coolants in the house, refrigerators, air conditioners, they bring forth what we call the indoor greenhouse gases pollution. And these ones, commercial and residential, they take up 11%. When you look at the global greenhouse gas emissions by economy, which economies are emitting the largest in terms of the carbon and the greenhouse gases? The one that is leading is the electricity and heat production, followed closely by agricultural, forestry, and other land use changes. Third is the industries. Fourth is the transport sector with 14%. And then the last two is the buildings with 6% and other energy sources at 10%. So in the buildings, 6% here we'll be able to dwell in how can we be able to embrace the green building initiatives by using green kind of energy sources that are more efficient and eco-friendly. Effects of carbon emissions. Which are some of these effects of carbon emissions? The first one that everybody knows is global warming. Carbon is not the most potent. The most potent is methane, which is 40 times potent than carbon. But carbon takes, in terms of volume, carbon is the largest. And because carbon occupies the largest volume, its effect is significantly felt across the globe. The temperatures right now, as you can see from this chart, is from 1951 to 1978. And that is in the last 50 years, if I'm counting in that, is that, and the 2010-2019 average is that the temperatures on average are between 1 and 1.5. That is an increase that has happened over the last 50 years. And that is why from the IPCC and the UNFCCC reports is that we are trying to maintain our temperatures below the 1.5 degrees centigrade. And for us to do that, 2010 has been categorized as the best year for us to attain a 1.5 degrees centigrade and below, by each and every country being able to reduce their carbon emissions by as much as 7.6%. So this calls for all countries to scale up their efforts towards a low carbon economy for us to attain a 1.5 degrees centigrade and less by 2050. The other effect of carbon emissions are air pollution. Beijing is now moving from that, which is Beijing has been categorized as the most polluted city in the world. And this comes with fair share of problems. We shall be able to look at that as we move on. Acidic rain is the other effect of carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Knowing very well that the air or the gas emitted by the carbons goes into the atmosphere, and once it is in the atmosphere, it combines with the water and the clouds, falling down as precipitation. And the reaction between carbon and water forms a weak carbonic acid, which when it falls on the water bodies, the rooftops, it creates an acidic kind of environment. The waters become more acidic, the rooftop starts corroding, the soils lose their pH, and this has a catastrophic effect when it comes to the flora and the fauna. We shall be able to touch on this as we move on. The other effect is on humans. This effect of carbon dioxide, from the chart in front of you, you can be able to see it affects the visual acuity, it affects auditory, the hearing aspect, it affects your brain capacity in terms of it causes drowsiness and all that. Also, it affects respiration. The skin is affected because of the acidic rain. Also, remember the skin will be affected. It affects the muscular controls and the heartbeat. So in generality, it means that the effect of carbon dioxide toxicity is too much on humans. What are the effects on animals? This is a very sad picture in front of you of a polar bear. You can see it has been able to lose almost 60% of its fat covering its body just because it did not have enough food, and now fat was being used in cases of starvation. It had to digest its own fat for survival. The reason being, carbon dioxide has led to the increase in surface temperatures of the earth, leading to global warming. The ice melts, and remember, the ice is one of the habitats for these polar bears. They are not able to hunt the seals as they used to when the seals were coming up for air. But with the increased water bodies, the seals are able to evade these polar bears, and the polar bears are not able to survive since they are not aquatic animals. The effects on plants also is that with increased carbon dioxide, the plants are able to increase their photosynthetic process. So as much as we are saying the carbon emissions are detrimental to other sectors, to the plants, they come with an added advantage. They increase their photosynthetic ability, increasing their leaf area and production. But scientists have been able to prove that plants that are grown in areas where the carbon emissions are high, as much as they are producing more, they are being attacked more by the pests. Reason being that the pests prefer these plants that have high carbon intake in them, so it now increases the infestation by the pests and diseases. Number 7, what are some of the effects of carbon? Is that the effects are so they have a huge effect when it comes to the aquatic life. I talked earlier about acidic rain. The acidity causes a shift in the pH in the water bodies. And one evidence of this is that the corals have started bleaching. The bleaching of the corals is an effect of the acidification of the water bodies. And this leads to the death of so many animals which are not being used to this kind of pH, which has now reduced due to the acidification. And then we have effects on the whole environmental system. The effects on the whole environmental system is that it affects all the elements of weather. With carbon dioxide increase into the atmosphere, it leads to global warming. And with global warming, it comes with fair share of problems. One, it leads to desertification. It leads to the increase in wind patterns. It leads to what we call flooding, which have been experienced across the world, even in Kenya. It leads to hurricanes and typhoons being more rampant. It leads to what we call thunderstorms happening now and then. So all these are some of the effects of carbon being emitted on Earth at high levels, and this leads to all elements of weather being affected. Which are some of the low carbon emission pathways we need to embrace so that we can avert the problem of global warming and so many other health impacts? One way is looking at the carbon footprint in front of you. You'll be able to see that I've categorized it in terms of how can we reduce the carbon emissions. In terms of electric industries, we can decide to use solar, the renewable energy, solar, biogas, wind, water, and the geothermal. In the transport sector is the same way. We should embrace the electrically fueled vehicles or the hybrids. We move from the fossil fuel dependent kind of economy. Recycling is one way. We should embrace the cyclic economy as opposed to the linear kind of economy. The cyclic economy has this approach where a commodity is put into use as much as possible, reducing decomposition, reducing what we call the disposal of these products. Because these products, once they're disposed, especially food, they increase the landfills. And once the landfills are increased, it leads to the production of more methane and more greenhouse gases from the landfills. One way we can be able to reduce our carbon footprints and reduce carbon emissions is turning off the lights when you leave the room. This is a simple act, but somebody can ask, how can this one help? Once you turn off the light, you have reduced your power consumption, and this has reduced the burden that is being placed on the electric generating factories or industries. The power plants, the electric power plants will now not have that strain of the high power demand. So they will not resort to other alternatives to sustain their renewable kind of energy source. If they have to do that, they'll have to shift to the fossil fuel kind of energy sources, which are not clean energy. Number two is that you can be able to embrace the reduce, reuse, and recycle. That is the cyclic economy. Recycle what you're producing. If you're producing food in the kitchen, which is waste, try to see how best you can use it as fertilizer or as manure instead of disposing it off into the landfills, increasing what we call the methane production. So we should embrace the cyclic economy as opposed to the linear economy. Number three, choose natural gas over coal and oil, which is very true. It has been found that a 6 kg gas is equivalent to cutting down almost 100 trees. So this one tells you the magnitude of using natural gas over coal and oil, which is more eco-friendly. The other one is number four, buying a hybrid or electric car over fossil fueled cars. This is the cry, this is the move we should be forward or moving towards. That is, we should shift towards electrically fueled vehicles, which are eco-friendly. And I'm happy to say that most of the countries in the world have put up policies. France has put one, Germany has put another one, whereby by 2030, 2040, they are trying to phase out all the fossil fueled or diesel powered vehicles, and they're trying to embrace the electrically fueled vehicles. The other way to reduce our carbon footprints is by governments or countries embracing walk or cycle to work instead of driving. This can only be made possible by these nations creating pathways for bicycles, as you can see from the slide in front of you, and pathways for people to walk. So once you do this, people will be able to embrace bicycle riding and walking to work as opposed to using vehicles. The other way is afforestation and reforestation activities. These activities will be able to help us to reduce or increase, sorry, it will help us to increase our carbon sinks. And once you increase the carbon sinks, this is one way of reducing our carbon footprints on Earth. Right now, each and every country in the world, they were able to enter into the Bond Challenge, which was signed in 2011, in September of 2011. And the main aim of Bond Challenge was for every country to embrace the planting of trees. And with that planting of trees, every country has designated an amount of hectares for them to increase their minimum of 10% tree cover. This will be able to help the earth increase its lungs of carbon sequestration, and in return, we'll be able to maintain or achieve our goal of maintaining our temperatures below the 1.5 degrees centigrade. Number 7, the use of eco-friendly household cleaning agents. This one, I mean, once you're buying these cleaning agents that you have to use, ensure they are eco-friendly so that they don't have any of the CFCs or the greenhouse gases inside them. So this will be able to reduce the chlorofluorocarbons in the atmosphere. Number 8, we should aim at avoiding the use of excess use of pesticides and the use of chemical fertilizer. We are advocating for the use of organic fertilizer, which is eco-friendly and which helps the soil improve its carbon sequestration potential instead of using pesticides and chemical fertilizers, which kill the organic or the organisms found within the soil that help the soil to improve its carbon sequestration potential. Number 9, we should aim at buying air conditioning and refrigeration equipments that do not contain the hydrochlorofluorocarbons. Nowadays, all these refrigeration air conditioners have been improved to embrace what we call the green energy or a low carbon kind of economy. So you should be able to look at the tags, the manufacturers, and how have they been able to shift from the hydrochlorofluorocarbons, which are detrimental to the ozone layer, and in reality help to exaggerate or exacerbate the global warming effect on Earth. Number 9, which is still touching on food preferences. We should aim at becoming more of vegetarians or vegans because science has proved that the high population cannot sustain the high demand that we have on meat. And animals have been found that to be one of the largest emitters of methane. And from the chart in front of you, consumption of 1 kg of mutton equates to the emission of 40 kg of carbon. When consuming 25 kg of beef, the second one from the chart, is equivalent to the emission of 25. A kg of beef is equivalent to the emission of 25 kg of carbon dioxide. But when you look at tomatoes, it means that when you consume 1 kg of tomato, it's equivalent to the emission of less than, that is 1 kg of carbon dioxide. So from this chart, you're able to see that the meat section has a high carbon emission rate compared to the vegetables. So for us to reduce our carbon footprints, one way is to shift from beef and meat and be more dependent on the vegetables that we have. Population control, I've put it as the last factor. The reason being that this is one area where most nations are evading. For us to reduce our carbon footprints, we should look into how can we be able to control our population increase. From the chart, it's evident to see that the population right now, we are heading to 8 billion. And future forecast is that by 2011 is that the population of the earth will be at around 11 billion. So what do we need to do as nations? Is that we need to reduce our population, because it has been noted that countries that have the highest populations have the highest carbon emission rates. In Asia, continental-wise, Asia has the largest population, followed by Africa. And with population increase, it means that people will have to encroach into the forested areas so that they can be able to have a space to live, to farm. And encroachment of these forested areas, it will now return us back a few steps behind from the steps we are taking in terms of increasing our forested areas. So yes, once you cut down these trees, you are now releasing this carbon that had been sequestered and stored in these trees into the atmosphere. And this comes as a result of population increase. Population control, the same way I've talked about earlier, is that by 2011 to 2100 is that the population is estimated to be at 11.3 billion. And this is, scientists have pointed out, 11.3 will be the carrying capacity of the earth. We cannot move beyond 11.3 billion. So this one will mean that we'll now have to face a calamity related to deaths, more deaths. And because we cannot do natural culling on our own, steps need to be taken to reduce our population increase so that we don't move to that level of 1.3 billion, putting in mind that the continent or the land mass is not increasing. The land mass is not increasing, and the land mass only takes 30%, putting in mind that 70% is the water bodies, and the population is increasing. Benefits of embracing a green economy. We have three. I've divided them into environmental benefits. I've divided them into economic benefits. And finally, I've divided it into social benefits. In the environmental benefits, the first one is it leads to improved visual amenity. What is visual amenity? The term visual amenity refers to the views and surroundings that create the backdrop to any area. From this slide, you can see we have some buildings, but the backdrop behind it is a park area filled with trees, which is green. So this one has improved that visual amenity, making it a conducive environment. You can see from the picture, some people are playing football, others are reading. So it creates that ambience, that good environment. So we should embrace the green economy. The benefit of embracing a green economy, the other one is it leads to enhanced microclimate. The urban heat island profile, you can see it that from the rural areas, the temperatures are 29.4. But once you're starting to move towards the downtown and urban residential area, the temperatures are increasing up to 32.8 degrees centigrade. The reason being that in downtown areas, deforestation has happened so that the high-rise building can come up. But in the rural areas where the tree cover is high, the temperatures are low. What can we do to reduce the urban heat island effect? Once we embrace the green economy, it will lead to us increasing our carbon sinks in the downtown area, that is increasing our park area, increasing our green spaces, and with that, the temperatures in the downtown area will be able to be reduced, and this will reduce the urban heat island effect, creating a conducive microclimate. The other benefit is improved air quality. With green economy, it will lead to the embracing of green energy. And green energy means that we'll be able to have a climate or an environment that is free from air pollution. And now it will also help to reduce what we call some of the health problems related to air pollution. The other benefit is reduced flood risks. It has been pointed out that once you have a green kind of economy, where you have embraced afforestation, you have embraced the use or the designation of drainage patterns, you have not encroached each and every pathway, then the floods will be a thing of the past. Better water quality, which is one of the SDGs, access to quality water. Once you have embraced the green economy, then it means the hydrological cycle will be better improved, water will be much more cleaner, and will not be having the impacts of acidic rain. Better soil quality. With acidic rain due to the carbon emissions, then it means that the soil will be acidified, and this will reduce the soil quality. But once we embrace the green economy, the soil quality will improve, because I believe you'll have embraced the use of organic fertilizer. The other one is water storage and reuse. In water storage and reuse, this is one other way we can be able to reduce our carbon footprints, and one of the benefits of a green economy. Green economy also leads to improved biodiversity. This means that we'll be having species, diverse species from plants and animals. The flora and fauna will flourish. Up to date, scientists have been able to quantify that more than 500,000 species have become extinct since the Industrial Revolution, and this has been due to the increase in carbon emissions and greenhouse gases. And right now, there is a possibility of most species which are not able to adapt to the changing climate dying in the North Pole and South Pole, where it is now becoming warmer as opposed to becoming cold due to the temperatures and due to the greenhouse gases we're emitting. Reduced ambient noise. From this picture, it's possible to see that there is traffic on one side, and these vehicles have engines which are roaring and producing sound, and residential apartments which are on the other side of the road. If they don't have these live fences made up of vegetation, trees, the noise will not be able to be absorbed by this vegetation. Scientists have pointed out that the use of live fences absorbs sound by half, by 50%. So this is a good thing. We need to embrace the green economy, especially in the urban or downtown areas where vehicles are more, where the sound pollution is much more higher. Which are some of the economic benefits? You have looked at the environmental benefits. Which are some of the economic benefits of embracing the green economy? One is reduced building energy costs. In the reduction of the energy costs, how does it come about? Once you embrace the green economy, it means that you'll be able to use materials that are cheaper, that are eco-friendly, and in reality, the energy cost will go down, because once you embrace the green building initiative, it means that you'll be able to increase more spaces for lighting to enter the room. You'll be able to use materials that are able to cool the house much more faster. So there'll be no need of using the air conditioners, no need of using more lighting and bulbs in the house, so that the lighting system can be improved, because you have already created that space for light to enter and move out, wind to circulate in the house, and cooling will become natural. The other one is new green economy. Jobs are created. Most countries have the fear that once we embrace the green economy, jobs will be lost. This is far from the contrary. We'll be able to increase more jobs. Where will new green jobs come from? From the slides in front of you, you'll be able to see more green jobs will be able to come from the renewable energy sector, manufacturing sector, the construction sector, the repair and rental services. They are saying that the fastest growing green jobs with the greatest salaries are, one, from the slide on your left, is that the solar photovoltaic installers, wind turbine service technicians. We're talking about the hazardous materials removal workers, all this. And the last you have in the conservation scientists. That is me and you. being able to give advice to these investors on which path to follow. So the jobs are there. Green economy equates to more than 1 billion jobs worldwide. Training and skill development is another benefit to the economy. That is, some skills will be developed as in aspect of us adapting to the green economy. And with skill development, it means that the people will be in their capacity of thinking, their skill level will be improved, and that is an advantage to the economy. Also, it will lead to improved workplace productivity. Once you embrace green spaces in the working areas, productivity is improved among the workers because health issues will have been reduced as opposed to a polluted area. And remember, I talked about the indoor greenhouse gases emissions. So once we reduce all this, even the workers will have a good health system and productivity will be improved. Also, having another benefit to the economy is the improving of tourism. Through embracing of green economy and a low carbon emission, it means that we'll have improved our biodiversity. And with biodiversity, it means that more species will be able to roam around in our national parks, in our forested areas. Birds will improve and tourists will be able to come to our countries for bird viewing, bird watching, looking into the animals which are now becoming extinct. Some of them, like the rhino that we have in Kenya, some of them are becoming extinct. The giraffes, the elephants. So yes, we need to embrace the green economy so that these animals can be able to produce and multiply in a large number. The other benefit to the economy is lowered health care costs. When people become less sick due to air pollution and all that, then it means that the cost of healthcare will have dropped drastically. Reduced crime. How does crime go hand in hand with embracing of the green economy? Once you embrace the green economy and green spaces, it means that you'll have created spaces good for lighting, spaces that are free for people to roam around as opposed to dark cornered areas. So yes, crime will have been reduced as a result of creating a conducive space within our residential areas with trees, with lighting channels, and yes, crime will be reduced. Which are some of the social benefits that we have? We have been able to look at the environmental benefits, economic benefits, and now we're going to look into the social benefits of embracing the green economy. The first one is encourages physical activity. People will be able to move up and down. They will be able to exercise better because with green economy, it means the increase of green spaces, the increase of parks for people to run around and to exercise themselves physically. Number two is it enhances leisure and creation. In urban areas, most countries don't have these kinds of open spaces for people to relax and enjoy themselves. And that is why in urban cities, most of these lifestyle diseases are more rampant in cities, like obesity and other lifestyle diseases, because they don't have spaces to exercise and to relax. And in reality, nations need to step up and increase their green or open spaces. It improves childhood development, and this comes about by children being able to move freely in the parks and run around. Children brought up in urban cities and downtown areas, they lack the luxury, the luxury of having open spaces to exercise, to play around, and to breathe that fresh air. So once we embrace the green economy and a low carbon emission kind of economy, then it means that even our children will be able to see the future and enter that future in good health. supports mental health. Green economy and a low carbon emission kind of economy, it supports mental health. It improves the mental health and well-being. It increases longevity of plants. It reduces obesity, and also it helps people to feel healthier. It lowers the stress level. Mental illness has been found to be one of the biggest issues right now in this COVID era we are living in. Mental illness is the biggest issue right now. We need to have these open and green spaces created so that we can be able to create that space for people to go and relax. And in reality, this will be able to reduce what we call the greenhouse effect, because people now will be able to shift from going into leisure or staying indoors and going into these open spaces. So mental illness is a problem, and if we don't do something about that, then it means that we are going to have a problem at our hand in the near future. So this is something that needs to be looked into, and if something is not done, then a calamity awaits us. The other benefit to the social society is that increased social cohesion. Through green spaces and green economy, people are able to come together. Nations are able to exchange ideas on how they can be able to collaborate with each and every country. In Kenya right now, they are working closely with so many organizations, the Covenant of Mayors, CCAP, the ICLER. All this leads to what we call increase in social cohesion, with countries exchanging ideas for the main purpose of increasing our green spaces. It ensures faster hospital recovery. This is very true in that I stated earlier that once we have a cleaner air, then it means that we'll be able to protect our health, we'll be able to protect our children, and that means that the hospital recovery rate will be much more faster. During this COVID pandemic, it has been pointed out that most people who had an underlying issue or sickness, they were affected the most by this COVID disease. But if we had embraced the green economy earlier, then it means that we would have improved our air. That means that we would have improved our respiratory systems, because these are the ones which are affected first by this COVID virus. So air pollution has been found that countries that have a high rate of air pollution, the COVID disease affected them first. And high death rates have been reported in nations that have poor air quality and are leading in carbon emissions. So carbon emissions correlate very well with the COVID pandemic. Countries that are leading in COVID deaths are also leading in carbon emissions. So this is something that needs to be looked into so that we can be able to avert this problem in the future. Also, the next one is milestones that have been taken by Kenya. Which are some of these milestones that Kenya has taken towards embracing the green economy? From the picture, that is the Cabinet Secretary of the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. And together with him at the back, just hidden slightly, is the Chief Conservator of Forests, Julius Kamau. And both of them, they have been able, with other ministries working hand in hand, to increase green spaces in our cities. And with increased green spaces, like this one is the John Michuki Memorial Park, which was recently opened. It has been able to attract so many people who are living in the urban areas who didn't have the luxury of space to come here to relax, to ride their bicycles, to breathe in the clean air. And this one will lead to improved health conditions of these residential people who are living in these urban cities. Also, with the trees being planted in this forest, in this park, then be sure that the carbon sinks have been increased. So Kenya has taken a step in reducing its carbon emissions by increasing its green or open spaces. The other one is that Kenya has taken steps in the green building initiatives. This is an initiative that most cities or counties within Kenya have embraced. Nakuru has embraced the green building initiative by advocating for the use of the Edge software, which helps to direct the architects, the building or the constructors, which materials can they use, where and how, which materials can help them to increase light percentage into the buildings, increase the air quality in the buildings. And in reality, this will help to reduce the consumption and the dependency we have on the air conditioners, the electricity, thereby reducing our indoor greenhouse gases or indoor carbon emissions. Number 3, Kenya has been able to improve its bicycle lanes and walkways. You can see from this picture that we have walkways for bicycle riders, walkways for people to walk. And on this road, you can see the number of vehicles have reduced significantly. Putting in mind, these same people who are riding bicycles and walking could have opted to use vehicles, but they have left their vehicles at home. Also, another thing that Kenya has put, which is still a work in progress, is the BRT system, the Bus Rapid Transport System, whereby they'll be having buses that can be able to move from one point to another point and carry as much people as possible. So people will be able to move from using their personal vehicles and embracing the use of buses. The banning of single-use plastic. This is something that has been advocated for in Kenya, and I'm happy to say that Kenya is among the top 3 countries in Africa that has actually banned the use of single-use plastic. And that's why we're advocating for Coca-Cola company to ban the use of plastic, because it has been found that most or 70% of the plastic found on earth come from the Coca-Cola industry. Just recently, USA or America wanted to dump their plastics in Africa. And this is something we said we cannot embrace. This is something that we are fighting against. Dumping your plastics in Africa does not help to solve the problem. They should shut down those big companies that are producing the plastics. And that is why we are saying the countries that are polluting or emitting the less pollutants are feeling the pinch. Africa is feeling the pinch, putting in mind that Africa, in terms of adaptivity, in terms of how are we able to adapt to climate change, we have a poor adaptation capacity. So once we are affected by the impact of climate change, it affects us more because our adaptation capacity is minimum. So we are saying categorically that we don't want to make Africa a dumping site just because of a few politicians who want to fill up their pockets. The other step that Kenya has taken is that increasing of our forest cover. Kenya right now has designated 5.1 million hectares as part of the Bond Challenge, which requires every country to set aside a certain amount of its land for planting of trees. Kenya is actually aiming to improve its tree cover to 10% from its current 7.2%. And this is achievable, and I'm happy to say that Kenya has embraced this clarion call. Number 6 is the use of green energy. Let me give you a few statistics on how Kenya is faring in terms of green energy. In terms of geothermal, Kenya is ranked number 1 in Africa. Globally, Kenya is ranked number 8 in Africa in terms of geothermal. We have some of the largest geothermal power plants in Olkaria and in Menengai. So yes, Kenya is leading in terms of geothermal power. Secondly, when it comes to solar, we are also increasing our solar capacity with a few solar panels being erected in various counties in Kenya. In terms of biogas power plants, we have the largest biogas power plant in Naivasha. It is able to recycle over 50,000 tons of organic wastes in a year. Wind power, we have a few wind power projects which have been set up in Kenya. In Masabit, we have one. So yes, Kenya has embraced the use of wind power plants, and we're increasing our capacity day by day. The other one is introduction of electric vehicles. From that picture, you can see these are Kenya vehicles. These vehicles are electrically powered. You can see the cables which have been actually plugged into the vehicle in front of them, and they are being electrically fueled. These are eco-friendly vehicles that each and every Kenyan or each and every person in the world needs to embrace and shift from the fossil fueled vehicles. So Kenya is leading in terms of the use of or embracing the electrically fueled vehicles. Also, Kenya is also leading in terms of formulation of climate change policies and plans. Within the nationally determined contributions, Kenya has set up policies and plans that are able to make sure that Kenya is in the right path of a low carbon economy. From in front of you in the slide, you have the National Climate Change Action Plan 2013-2017. It was recently revised. Now we have the National Climate Change Action Plan 2018-2022. So yes, and from the picture of it, you can see we are embracing the low carbon economy, and our goal is towards low carbon climate resilient development. That is the goal of this policy or plan that Kenya has actually formulated. And last but not least, what is the part in short? The part in short from the founder of Climate Reality Project, because this presentation is brought to you courtesy of the Al Gore Foundation, the Climate Reality Project Foundation, is that we need to embrace the green economy. And this part in short, is that solutions to the climate crisis are within reach. But in order to capture action today across every level of society, so yes, solutions to the climate crisis are within reach, but in order to capture them, we must take urgent action toward today across every level of society. So we must take action across every level of society if we want to achieve or to attain the green economy. We are in a state of climate crisis, and that means that we must do something so that we can avert this problem of climate change. Thank you for listening. Post your questions on the live webinar. I'll be able to answer them as we move on. I hope you enjoyed the session, and please do remember to subscribe to our channel for more of these kind of educative sessions. Goodbye and hope